Imagine this. You walk into your boss's office thinking this is just another normal meeting. Maybe you're a little nervous, but you expect feedback, maybe even some encouragement. Instead, your boss looks at you with this strange mix of frustration and pity, holds up your performance review, and says something you'd never expect to hear. Maybe this job isn't for you. Maybe you should quit. The air gets heavy, your heart sinks, and in that moment, you realize everything you thought you knew about your job, your place in that company, and even your future is about to change. But this story doesn't start at that shocking moment. To understand why it happened and why I walked out of that office and never returned, we need to go back. Back to the early days when I thought working hard, being dedicated, and doing more than what was asked of me would guarantee success. I was fresh, eager, the type of employee who believed that if you gave your best, management would recognize it. And for a while, that seemed to be true. At least, that's what I told myself. You see, jobs can be tricky. At first, everything looks shiny, new desks, new people, new opportunities. You put on your best smile, your best clothes, and your best attitude. And at first, they love you for it. My boss even said, "We need more people like you around here." I took that as a sign that I belonged. But belonging is not the same as being valued, and that's something I learned the hard way. The first few months at the company were actually exciting. I'd wake up early, sometimes even before my alarm, just because I was motivated. I remember my very first project. Simple, but important. I stayed late, put extra effort into it, and when my boss saw the final results, they nodded with approval. It felt like a win. It felt like maybe this was the place I could build a future. But here's the thing about workplaces. At first, they'll praise you for doing more. They'll clap for your overtime. They'll thank you for sacrificing your lunch breaks. But soon, what once was extra effort becomes the new expectation. You're no longer seen as hardworking, you're seen as the person who can handle everything. And instead of asking, they just pile on more. That's what slowly started happening to me. I was the one staying late, the one fixing other people's mistakes, the one covering for teammates who slacked off. And you know what? At first, I didn't mind. I thought, this is my chance to shine. If I do all this, my boss will see how valuable I am. And for a while, it looked like they did. Smiles, good job, pats on the back. But deep down, I started noticing something. The more I did, the less it seemed to matter. My extra work became invisible. The harder I worked, the more they ignored it. And that's when things started to change inside me. The first crack appeared. During a team meeting, we had just wrapped up a massive project. I had stayed countless late nights, even worked on weekends, just to make sure everything was perfect. When the presentation ended, I waited, thinking maybe my boss would acknowledge my contribution. Instead, they gave credit to the team as a whole. Fair enough, right? But then they singled out one of my coworkers, who honestly did the bare minimum and praised them like they carried the entire project. I sat there, nodding, clapping like everyone else, but inside, I was boiling. I thought maybe it was just a mistake. Maybe next time, they'd notice. But next time came, and the same thing happened. My work disappeared into the shadows while others were celebrated. That's when I realized this wasn't about performance. This was about favoritism, office politics, and the kind of game I didn't know how to play. Still, I kept going. Because what else could I do? Rent had to be paid, bills had to be covered, and I didn't want to quit too soon. But every day, my motivation drained just a little more. Every time someone else was praised for work I had done, I felt a part of myself slipping away. And all the while, I kept thinking, if I just keep pushing, they'll see. They'll have to see. Performance reviews were coming up. You know how that feels. You spend weeks wondering what's going to be written about you. Will they highlight the late nights, the sacrifices, the way you've carried projects on your back? Or will they nitpick the smallest mistakes and ignore everything else? I tried not to worry. I told myself, you've done more than enough. You've worked harder than anyone. There's no way this review will be bad. But deep down, I felt uneasy. I noticed how my boss had started looking at me differently. Less smiles, more criticism. Even the little things became a problem. Why didn't you reply to that email faster? Why is this report 2 pages instead of 3? It was like nothing I did was good enough anymore. That review meeting became this storm cloud hanging over me. I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about everything I'd done, every detail, every choice. I wanted so badly for it to pay off. But when the day finally came, nothing could have prepared me for what happened inside that office. I sat down across from my boss. They didn't smile. They didn't greet me warmly. They just opened a folder, pulled out a few papers, and slid one across the desk. My performance review. I picked it up, expecting to see positive marks, maybe some constructive feedback. Instead, what I saw felt like a punch in the gut. Words like inconsistent, lacks initiative, could improve communication. I couldn't believe it. This was the exact opposite of everything I had been doing. I looked up, waiting for them to explain, and then came the words I'll never forget. Look, maybe this job isn't for you. Maybe it's time to consider if you really belong here. My stomach dropped. I wanted to defend myself, to fight back, to show them the emails, the late-night messages, the projects I had single-handedly saved. But my voice froze. Instead, I just sat there, listening, numb. My boss leaned forward, almost whispering now, and said, "Honestly, it might be better if you quit." That was it. The moment that broke me. Leaving that office, I felt like the walls were closing in on me. I kept replaying their words in my head. Maybe you should quit. It wasn't just rejection, it was betrayal. All the effort, the sacrifices, the nights I gave up for this job, all of it dismissed with one sentence. I walked past my coworkers, trying to hide my face because I could feel the tears building up. It wasn't just about losing a job, it was about losing a sense of worth. For months, I believed I was making a difference. That belief was shattered in seconds. I went home that night in silence. I didn't eat. I didn't talk. I just lay in bed staring at the ceiling thinking, how did it come to this? How did I let myself give so much to people who didn't care at all? That's when the realization started to hit me. Maybe this wasn't a loss. Maybe it was the start of something new. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I couldn't. I opened my laptop, stared at the company's emails piling up, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilty ignoring them. Instead, I felt something new. Relief. Relief that I didn't have to force myself back into that toxic place. Relief that I didn't have to smile at people who didn't see me. For the first time, I asked myself, what if this isn't the end? What if this is the beginning? I started writing down everything I had learned, how much I could handle, how strong I had been, and most importantly, how dangerous it is to let someone else define your value. That review wasn't the truth. It was just their opinion, shaped by bias and politics. And I decided right then, I wouldn't let their opinion dictate my future. Looking back, I realized something important. Quitting wasn't a failure. Quitting was freedom. That job had drained me, made me doubt myself, made me question if I was capable. But walking away gave me the chance to breathe again, to rebuild, to see my own worth without waiting for someone else's approval. It took me time to heal, to stop waking up at 6 a.m. out of habit, to stop checking emails like my life depended on it. But slowly, I came back to myself. And once I did, I saw something clearly. No job, no boss, no company should ever have the power to crush your spirit. Like that. Here's what I learned. If you're in a job where your efforts are invisible, where your sacrifices are ignored, where your boss makes you feel small, then you're not the problem. The system is. And staying there, hoping it'll change, only destroys you in the long run. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're strong enough to protect yourself, strong enough to know your worth, and strong enough to create a future where you're respected, not dismissed. So yes, my boss begged me to quit after that performance review. And I did. I never returned to that office again. At first, it felt like the end of everything I had worked for. But now, I see it for what it really was, the beginning of something better. If you're watching this and you've ever felt undervalued, unappreciated, or invisible at work, let me tell you this: you deserve better. Don't wait for someone else to see your worth. See it for yourself, because sometimes the best career move you can ever make is walking away.